Right now. Just so everybody knows, we will not be covering East End tonight as well as Lamberts Point. We'll be covering East End Thursday evening in person at the Downing Gross Cultural Arts Center or online via the other registration link. And if you're not sure which one is which, feel free to email me and I'll make sure you got the right one. And just so everyone knows, if you signed up for the recording tonight, you will have access to the recording 24 hours from now. You'll receive it in your email box. If you know community members who didn't register but want the recording immediately, they can just use the registration link, register, and it'll pop it right up for them. And we'll also post this on YouTube afterwards as well. As always, it'll just take a little bit of a lag time. So before I introduce myself, we want to go ahead and give everyone on the line a chance to introduce themselves. And then we'll have folks in the room introduce themselves, and then we'll get started. So I'm going to call folks out one by one. The first person I see is Adrian. Adrian, are you able to?
This is Gwen. I'm one of the organizers. Yeah, Adrian doesn't have audio set up. So Adrian, if you'd like to introduce yourself in the question box, we can read that out loud. Otherwise, you know, feel free to, you know, if you want to look for audio options, you can do that as everyone else is introducing themselves.
Perfect. Thanks, Glenn. The next person on my list is Glenn.
Hi there, I'm Glenn Bessa. I'm a volunteer with the Sierra Club and pleased to be here this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Next up, I see Grace.
And this is Grace Gonteric with the Office of Communities, Tribes, and Environmental Assessment in EPA's Region 3 office, which covers Mid-Atlantic states. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Grace. And next up, I see Miss Lindeman.
Hi, my name's Greta Lindeman. I live in the area on the Elizabeth River. Been here for many years, have watched the pollution for many years, so I'm very interested in protecting all the inhabitants and curious this evening to discuss the location of the sensors. Thank you.
Thanks, Greta. Next up, I see Julia.
Hi, I'm Julia Raimundi. I work for DEQ at Central Office and Communications. I'm just here observing tonight.
Thanks, Julia. And next, I see Pam.
Hi, I'm Pam Boatwright with Elizabeth River Project.
Awesome. And then next up, I see Tara.
Hi, I'm Tara Miller. I'm working with Malcolm Jones and Nathaniel Kurtz through the Repair Lab at University of Virginia.
Awesome. Thanks, Tara. Thank you guys all for joining us tonight. And then as you heard, we do also have Gwen McCrae on the line. And sorry, I'll let her introduce.
Hi, everyone. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Gwen McCrae. I am the Environmental Justice Coordinator for the Northern Region and assisting tonight online.
Cool. All right. Now I'm going to go in the community across from the front to the back. So we'll start here with Danielle.
Hello. Good evening. My name is Danielle Sims. I'm the Environmental Justice Program Manager at DEQ.
And then next, well, Chuck will introduce himself in a minute. We'll go to Jason.
I'm Jason Hodges. I work with DEQ. I'm the compliance inspector.
There, I'm Chase May, and I'm also an air compliance inspector. I'll be helping her as well.
Thank you.
My name is Carl Poole, Virginia Majority. I worked in the neighborhood. I've had family live in the neighborhood. Glad to be here.
Thank you. And then Rachel. Janet.
I'm Deputy Regional Director here in Tidewater.
And I'm Craig Nickel, the Regional Director here in the Tidewater Regional Office for DEQ.
And I'm Barbara McCord with EPA Region 3 in the Office of Communities, Tribes, and Environmental Assessment.
Awesome. And then I'm Grace Holmes. I'm the DEQ Environmental Justice coordinator for the Tidewater region. And then we have Chuck Turner as well.
Chuck Turner with the Office of Air Quality Monitoring.
Fun. And before we get going, just so everybody knows, in the room, this thing is called an owl, and it's got a 360-degree camera. So when you just talked, it zoomed in on your face. So when you ask a question, it's going to do the same thing. Not too close to your face, I promise. It's reasonable. But just so you know, it's panning to you when you speak. Alrighty, so we are going to get started with some tone setting today. I'd like to kind of revisit this. This is something that we did, so you guys will remember, at the April meeting last year in 2022. And I wanted to kind of bring us back to that and make sure that we're setting our intentions for communication for this year as well. So that being said, does anybody have any kinds of guidelines that they think we should be thinking about in terms of communication for tonight and then just in general for the project? And online, please feel free to unmute and shout out if you'd like. Anybody? All right, well, the one always in my back pocket is transparency. Any other values that we want to have while we communicate with each other tonight in general throughout the project?
Community voices first.
Community voices first. Something I learned as a high school teacher, guys, is you spell words a lot worse when people are watching. Anything else that we want to think about? Anybody online have anything? Anything else? All right, well, the other thing I'm going to add here is openness, right? So part of what we want to talk about tonight is meeting structures going forward. And I think we can all acknowledge that there isn't the entire neighborhood of Lamberts Point in this room or online right now, right? So I think something that I want to keep in mind myself as we talk tonight is being open to new ideas and figuring out ways that we can continue to do this better, because that's something that is really important, I think, as we continue through this project. And so that's something I remind myself all the time is, you know, being open to new ideas and figuring out how we can continue to pivot. And I will say after our October meeting, we talked about doing a hybrid meeting. So that's what we're doing tonight. And I think it's a step in the right direction. And hopefully we can talk a little bit more tonight about what we think that direction is as we move forward. All right, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So our meeting agenda today, we're going to start with a review of EPA siting criteria. So what goes into siting an air monitor? What are some of the things that Chuck and his team were thinking about during the lead up to choosing these sites? Then we're going to talk about those sites in particular with some of those considerations in mind. We're going to have a little bit of an open facilitated discussion about future meeting formats. Have also set up something in the room to that end today. We don't have a huge turnout in the room. So I do want everyone to know that as we have that conversation, that's an ongoing conversation. So whatever we talk about tonight, that's awesome. But if you have other stuff you want to add, if you want to give me a call and talk about it in depth, please know that this is not the only time that we're going to talk about it at this meeting. So we're going to do this an open house. So if anybody has questions about project backgrounds, if you want to add to the wall over there with meeting feedback ideas, we have our environmental justice program manager, Danielle Sens, here tonight. So she's here to answer questions about environmental justice at DEQ at large. And then we also have Barbara from EPA here tonight, and she's here to chat with you guys about a project that EPA is bringing to Lamberts Point in St. Paul's here in Norfolk. Next slide, please. So I'm going to pass it over to Chuck to start talking about some of the EPA siting criteria.
Again, I'm Chuck Turner. I'm with the Office of Air Quality Monitoring, and we're going to go through siting criteria, what we selected, why we selected them,
and hopefully get some feedback on where we've selected and what we have ahead of us. All right, so this puts it pretty well. The location itself, when you select a site, it has to be representative of the area you're trying to monitor. Access, you have to get there because there's ongoing QA requirements, so you have to be able to get to it and get to it in a safe way. Power, everything we have runs on power. We need, in some cases, 110, some cases 220, but we need power at all our sites. We do need communications because nowadays, particularly with our continuous PM 2.5, we reach out and get the data from that monitor, bring it back to our central computer so that we can review the data on a daily basis, make sure everything is operating properly. Security, we got to keep the monitors secure because we certainly don't want people doing things that would hurt the monitors or prevent them from operating properly. So most of our, as a matter of fact, all of our sites have fences around them. In terms of the placement, that is the big component of EPA siting criteria because you have to be able to get air samples that are representative of the area that you want to cover. So you can't be too close to a building, trees, things of this nature, so that you get good free flow of air and representative in the sense that whatever the year-round wind direction, for example, on what's called a windrows, is represented at that site. Photos, we do try to put online as much information about the sites and give people an idea of what they look like, where they are, that type of information. And every site is part of a larger program that has a quality assurance project plan associated with it. We have a separate quality assurance project plan for this project as well, which we completed with full EPA approval in February of this year. So we're moving forward with that type of information. Let's see, there are several different reasons why you site a monitor. In this case, the bulk of the sites that we have for this particular project are going to be neighborhood-based monitors. We do, however, in some cases, and in this project, have what we call site-specific monitors that are put in place just to directly get a measure of the pollution being emitted by a certain specific site. In Lamberts Point, Norfolk Southern, in the Newport News area, the coal piles that I'm sure everybody has seen driving by. And we install it at ground level, which is a way of saying the sampling that we're getting is in the breathing zone. That is, we want to sample air that people are breathing, that who are walking down the street, doing the normal things that you do as you go through life each day. Again, free flow of air. In the regulations, there are things that are defined as obstruction. The airflow, buildings, trees, and there are rules on how you place a monitor to prevent that obstruction having a disproportionate impact on the air quality sampling that you're doing. Infrastructure needs, we went over some of those. Electricity, obviously, that's one. We have to put it in an area where it won't get flooded, for example, elevate it where we need to. All these things you have to consider in putting a site out because they have to be visited on a routine basis to be able to do QA and keep them operating. They have to be operated without people there. That is, they have to operate independently. In the case of PM10, they have to run for 24 consecutive hours. So power has to be there, but it also has to be reliable. We also have to have the means of reading the power, so to speak, so that we know when we have power issues. Next slide, please. All right, so what we're looking at right now is the PM10 sampler that we use at DEQ. It's an older model, it's called Wedding and Associates, but it has proven itself time and time again in terms of the quality of the data that we gather from these samplers. As a matter of fact, all the PM10 samplers we have right now in the Virginia network are all these type of PM10 samplers. 3 of the 4 sites in Lamberts Point will be just these, just PM10 samplers. So that's the predicate that is the precursor for getting the metals information that we need in the program as well. And, you know, we, as part of the contractual buildup for this, each of these sites will have electric power. There'll be power for the monitor, power for the audit equipment when we go out there, and then additional power for potentially putting a what's called an old particle sampler, which gets larger particles in the PM10 as a supplement to what we're doing with the PM10. Slide, please. All right, this complex, rather complex picture here is one of our multi-pollutant sites. This is the Hopewell site, so it's not exactly what we're going to see in this project. However, it's very close. You can see the PM10 sampler, as we talked about before. The DEQ sign right next to that, that is one of those TSP samplers. That is this particulate sampler that we talked about. One thing you don't see here is in the trailer that we'll put out at the multi-pollutant site, there will be a continuous PM2.5 and continuous PM10 instrument put in there. So we will get hourly PM2.5 and PM10 data. That's part of this project. That will be at one of the sites. One of the sites will be a multi-pollutant site, and I think we get into where that site will be later in the presentation. So next slide. There we go. Okay, so the first site is right at the trailhead, I would call it, of the Elizabeth River Trail. It's in an open area. This will be a PM10 only site. It does have a zoning designation of OSP, open space and preservation, but it has enough open space and is far enough away from those trees, as you see in the picture, that we can get a good sample from this location. And I've shown where we're going to get the power from. There will be power be dug underground, and so there will be some disturbance, but we always put everything back and reseed everything so that we leave as little traces as possible with any of the work we're doing. So the first site we're showing here is a PM10 only site. It's at the west of 25th Street near the intersection of Elkhorn Avenue.
Chuck, sorry to interrupt. Would you mind coming to this side of the screen so we're a little closer to the speaker for our folks online?
So why don't I move this a little bit?
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so we'll do this. Okay, great. All right, the next one is, that we show here is at the, next to the fire station. As a matter of fact, across the street from where we are right now at the community center. Again, nice location. This will be a PM10 only site, ample power supply. Zoning designation is appropriate. The one issue there that I'm going to be working with the city on is looks to be a natural gas line that we'll have to deal with. Hopefully we have an idea of where that easement is so we can build around that particular component. Next slide, please. All right, so this is 26th Street and Bowden's Ferry Road. Show the transformer down there. This is going to be the multi-pollutant site. This is a little bit further away from Norfolk Southern than the Elkhorn Avenue and 25th Street are. We want this as a multi-pollutant site for several reasons. First one being that it's not that far from a major amount of construction that's going to be going on. So we're going to start that particle sampler at this site to see what's generated in that construction process. What we're targeting or looking for are what are called legacy pollutants. What is in the soil that gets stirred up that may be impacting air quality at this monitoring site. It will also have, as I said, the PM2.5 sampler there that we will be able to get hourly data from. So this is a multi-pollutant site. We should get a lot of information from this. Next slide, please. All right, and this is the last one we've worked out. I failed on a couple of sites here closer to Old Dominion, but it looks like this site right here does meet the siting criteria, and it does have a good representative circle, so to speak, that we can use that overlaps with some of our other monitoring sites. The advantage here is it doesn't appear that there is any underground anything there that will get in the way of the construction. But again, that's part of the submittal to the city that we provided last week that will allow us to take a look at that with them, and they can let us know if there's anything that would prevent us from building on this site. Again, this is a PM10 only site. next
Let's
slide.
stop there.
Okay.
And if there are any questions about any of that, about sites, about anything there, let's talk about those right now. If you've got questions online, feel free to unmute and ask them. And then we'll move into talking about future meetings after that. Any questions for Chet, any of those sites?
I've got one.
Sure.
What happened to citing this in the Dominion? I know originally we were talking about doing it somewhere around, what is that, 29th and?
Yeah, well, we found a site near Whitehurst Hall. We're pretty high. As it turns out, it was formerly used as a test case for a underground geothermal project. So there are pipes buried all along that, and no one really knew where they were. There wasn't a map for it, so we weren't sure that we could go in and dig the corners for the fence, for example, the grounding for the monitors or anything. There was no way of being sure that we wouldn't be hitting something underground. So we then took a tour with some of the building and grounds people at ODU. We looked at 3 different sites. All of them had potential, but ultimately one was too close to the river, would have been impacted by moisture. The other was just too close to some very tall trees. There's no way around it. So this is what we were able to come up with in that area that meets the siting criteria. You know, certainly if the Old Dominion people who worked with us very closely on this picked out the sites for us, if they have some other ideas, I'll certainly look at them as well. But, you know, as we're moving forward, this will be the 4th site, but we'll still be flexible if Old Dominion can come up with some other possibilities or if we find.
Old Dominion picked the sites and to see if they were suitable.
Yeah, well, they picked what they thought would be suitable sites. I went there and decided whether we could use them or not. This one was my selection. That's simply because that was the only one I could find in that area that met all the siting criteria.
Well, here's my thing, and I know we're going to get to, I guess, talking about purple air monitors a little bit today.
Yeah, sure.
But, you know, it just feels like there's an Old Dominion size hole in the purple air net monitors and when it comes to siting monitors, even though you can see on that map where there are at least 3 clear areas just off the Powell's hand that they could have easily given you the sites. And yes, they did.
Actually, I would say that we looked at all the sites I could identify via Google Maps and Google Earth. And, you know, they're just, as I said, the siting criteria is fairly strict on a lot of these, particularly on structures, simply because you want it to be representative of the meteorology of the area in terms of wind direction. This right here was the best spot I could find in that location, all right, because there is no obstructions. It is wide open. I would say that I don't believe it is close enough to the river for that to be problematic. All right, if it were on the river, I'd be, you know, more concerned, but I think we're in a good spot here in terms of being able to meet siting criteria. The other thing you have to remember is that each one of these monitors have an area for which they're represented, okay? And if you look at the map and you look at the area for which this is representative, it covers most of the Old Dominion area, as well as down to where the like football practice field is and everything like that. So it covers a lot of that area.
It's also out of sight and out of mind for students who might ask, what is this big metal thing sitting right by our tennis courts or right by?
Yeah, I hear that, and that actually is a valid point. This is pretty obscure in terms of being able to see it. There is, however, a fairly large parking lot right next to it. It seems to draw a lot of Old Dominion vehicles, and there is I think the engineering building is right next to it as well. So it's not going to be completely obscure, but there, but you know.
The golf course behind the main building, then you're not going to see it. There's a fence around there, and you can't, you're not going to see it. I mean, I know this is from the air view, but
yeah,
from that parking lot,
yeah,
if it's right where that little white dot is at, you're not going to see it.
Okay. Well, all I can say is, you know, we've met the siting criteria, and we'll certainly give tours if people are interested. I mean, I think that you know, that certainly comes with the grant, that type of information and public outreach. So if there are people who want to see where each one of these are, we'll certainly take them through.
I'm going to use that as a segue, if that's okay. We have a question on the line from Glenn. He says, I recall an earlier discussion about using purple air monitors. Will they still be used as well? Yes, Glenn, they will be. We're still working on putting them across the community in Lamberts Point, as well as in the Southeast community and Newport News. We are very interested in possibly getting one on ODU's campus. I have not given up. So we're still working on that, to Carl's concern. And I see in the chat that someone maybe didn't hear Carl's question, so I did want to just repeat that for you. He was wondering why we were not able to find a site on ODU's campus, as that was originally the area that we were looking in. And then Chuck's answer was a response to that, so just so you guys know. And then the other thing that Carl said is that there's a concern that there's an ODU-sized hole currently in the purple air sensor map right now, and we definitely want to fill that in. So this is my plug. If anybody has any inroads for me, give me a call. Yeah. And then the next question was a schematic to scale of these monitor locations, map superimposed, would be very helpful. Clarifying all the sensors in one schematic for us to consider our own factors we deem important. So we will make this presentation available subsequent to this meeting online, but I'm sure that we can also put together a map that shows these.
In an earlier presentation, we gave a map where it showed, push pins where each site was, and then the representative circle that would be, well, what would the circle that would be representative of the data and what the data would present in terms of the area that it is covered by that monitor. So there is that information as well that's already out there if you want to look at that. And if that isn't what you're looking for, certainly let us know and we can go beyond that and get a little further into exact locations and what we mean by representatives.
Absolutely, and I can work on updating those maps this week.
Okay.
Yep. Other questions about siting? Okay, let's keep going. That isn't, not a stopping point for questions. If you have more, feel free to ask them. Feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll come back to them. Right. So, bringing my trusty board back over here. We, have a conversation that we had about what these meetings look like. How can we most effectively connect with people? We have been having regular organizer meetings, and that is, can we go to the next slide? Sorry. We have been having regular organizer meetings, and those are monthly, every second Friday from 3 to 4 p.m., and those are totally online. We have folks, I think we have a list of about 25 folks on that list, and anyone is welcome to be on it if you'd like to be. I don't add anyone without their permission, but if you want to be, I would love to have you. Anyone is welcome. And it's just an opportunity to check in, see how things are going, ask questions, share community events or updates that are relevant to the project. Last year, we had 3 community-wide meetings, April, July, and October. And we also have had some one-on-one meetings with community members and neighborhood groups like the Civic League and other things like that. And then, like I said, we do those regular online organizer meeting check-ins. Now, that being said, we have been doing all the meetings last year were in person, no virtual option at all. So we realized that that was limiting for some folks. And so we wanted to pivot, offer another option. I think we got a lot more people attending online this time than in person. So I think that shows us that that's helpful for some folks. I don't think that's where it ends, right? So I think I want to open it up to what other people think about what these meetings should look like, how we can come to the community and be most effective at giving this information to folks. I have some ideas, but I don't want to lead with them. I want you guys to kind of give me what you think would work best first and see if we can come to something that would work better. And please, online, feel free to unmute and shout stuff out. Timing, what do we think about timing? What is 6:30 to 8 like for folks? I believe in our original surveys we put out to the community, shoot, I mean, it's been a couple years now, I think. They said evening meetings, but has that changed? Is there something we want to look at instead? Is it two different options, maybe, for folks who would rather come in the evening versus another time?
You have a comment that says timing is good, hybrid is good.
Timing is good, hybrid. So evening meetings seem like that's working. And hybrid is helpful, so that's good to know. I will say the other thing that I like about this format is that with GoToWebinar, which is the software we're using, it automatically records and then sends it out to folks who signed up. So if you signed up and you really wanted to know what happened, but you just didn't have time to log on 6:30 to 8, you can expect to see the entire meeting the next day and be able to call us and follow up with any questions, concerns, further meetings that need to happen. One thing that I've been thinking about, just to put it out there, is if we should be opening up online meetings more often throughout and advertising those a little harder, letting people know that they're happening a little more, and having these kinds of meetings as more of an online, all-together conversation, and then having it so people can give me a call and let me know, I would really like you to be at my faith community this day to give a presentation to these folks. That's something I've heard from a pastor in East End. That would be really helpful. And he said it would be a lot more helpful than asking people to come to a place that you picked. And that made a lot of sense to me, honestly. So I did want to throw that out there as something that's been just kind of rolling around in my mind as a better way. Sky's the limit, guys. Like, what does it look like? Is it office hours? Is it weekend meetings? Is it more often? Is it less often? I'm really, whatever makes sense.
Honestly, I think the factor here isn't so much the format or time or place, it's outreach. For instance, what was the best attended meeting out of those April, July, and October meetings last year?
Definitely April.
How was the outreach? Definitely April?
Absolutely.
All right, what was the outreach like?
It was very similar to July and October.
Tell
So,
me, like, what was the method of outreach?
so flyers, canvassing, emails, email lists. We did surveys prior and people gave us contact information. So we kind of had a list to start with of people in the community who were interested. Both of those meetings in East End and here in Lamberts Point were more well attended in April versus other meetings. And I think part of that, at least in East End, people were very interested in what the project was and they wanted to know what was going on. And we haven't been able to maintain that interest level. And I think, you know, I'm not really sure exactly why. I think we can say that the update that we gave last April was significantly bigger than what we gave in October. So I think that could be part of it, right? I also think that we might have some more interest as we have data start coming in, but I don't know. And I think that's a great point. I think outreach could look different, and I think it could be better. And it seems like canvassing has kind of saturated the neighborhood at this point. I'm not sure I'm getting new people that way. But I'm willing to pivot and I'm willing to do whatever you guys think makes the most sense. So if it's showing up to First Baptist every Sunday, if it's probably not every Sunday. Let me walk that back. At least once a month, I thought I could absolutely make the time to do that. And we can, like I said, weekend meeting, pop-ups is something I was thinking about for this summer. So literally just a table in the neighborhood and I'll just like hang out all day and talk to people who want to talk to me. That's something I've thought about. I'm gonna write that. Okay, so we want to revisit that. Pop-ups. They could be purple air pop-ups where I got a purple air. I'm like, hey guys, these are available for your neighborhood right now. And we just talk about it. I'm not sure what would be most useful for folks at this point, or even, what kind of outreach should we be looking into that we're not looking into right I used to be a teacher. I can good at waiting silence. So. Now, it's, I think something that I have considered after talking with Pastor Swan and East End was that we do need to think about reaching our faith communities in a different way. That's something I've been thinking about a lot. Another thing I've been thinking about a lot are our students. Is there an opportunity to talk about air quality index with the kids in the neighborhood? There's a park in Lamberts Point right here. Is there an opportunity to just have AQI information sometimes in the summer for people who are bringing their kids to the park? All right, well, it seems like maybe we don't have answers right now, and that's okay. But I think maybe the takeaway needs to be, we're thinking about it, and we want to keep doing it better. So maybe it's something that comes up. Maybe it's not something we know about right now, but maybe it's a community event or some kind of venue that you're like, you know what? Grace should really be talking to this person, or she should really be coming here regularly. Give me a call and let me know. It's an ongoing conversation. It's something that we want to continue doing a better job of. And I really want to be intentional about making those pivots as folks request them. And the other thing I'll just open up is, I know that we're doing this meeting tonight, but this is never the only opportunity to get this information. You can always call me. I'm always happy. I'm happy to come talk to you one-on-one. I'm happy to come talk to a group. I'm happy to chat on the phone. Whatever makes sense. We'll find some time and make it happen. So I'm gonna move on from this, if that's okay, unless anybody has anything else they'd like to add. All right, guys. Well, in the interest of everyone's time, I am going to move on to the next portion. So next slide, please. We're gonna have a little bit of an open house. Let's acknowledge that we have most of our participants online. So I'm gonna do this a little bit differently than I had originally planned, pivoting. So we have Danielle Sims here again, who is our program manager for DEQ, Office of Environmental Justice, and we also have Barbara O'Horn here from EPA. So I want to give Barbara a chance to just kind of say hello to you guys. Just say, hi, I'm Barbara, right? Just so you guys know who she is. If you are interested in talking with Barbara about the EPA initiative that they're looking at in Lamberts Point more in detail, and you are online, if you wouldn't mind giving us your contact information in the chat, we would really appreciate it, and we'll make sure that Barbara gets it as well. So if Barbara, would you mind waving for us? Hi, I'm Barb. That's Barb. So if you guys are interested in chatting with her, but you're online and you can't chat in person right now, that opportunity is still there, and you just make sure to give us the contact information and we'll get it to her. We also have Danielle Sims, like I said, in the room, same offer there. If you want to chat with her, feel free to give your contact information in the chat, and she will be sure to follow up with you if there are specific EJ questions that you might have. We also do have background project information if anybody has questions. We have a future meeting brainstorm on the wall over there. So again, if you're in the room and you want to do something and tape something up there, I would love it, but I understand if you don't want to today. So if you're online and you want to participate further in that conversation, give me a call, send me an email. We will talk about it at the next TAME organizers meeting in June at length. And that will be, I'll send it out, but it's the second Friday in June at 3 p.m. And I'm not sure what that date is, but it's the second Friday in June. And then if there are any further citing questions, any questions at all, now is the time.
We have two questions from the folks online. One being relative to the Whitehurst site, that seems problematic. If the problem is not knowing where underground piping, et cetera, is, there are plenty of services, technologies available to determine that. Sorry, I'm not able to, I missed where.
Did you catch that, Chuck?
I did. So I can go ahead and respond.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, a little more to that question, but good start.
So the, well, it wasn't.
So this is Gwen. Do you want me to finish reading that first?
Yes, yes.
There's
Okay,
just
so
a little bit more. Publicly available is Miss Utility. There are private companies. I know one and ODU may, in its engineering department, own technology that could help.
Very true, but my understanding is from what that grid looks like, even if we were able to find where the pipes are, it still would be prohibitive in terms of us being able to build something there with having to sink the posts for the fence, having to sink the grounding, all that. So basically, while it would be an interesting effort to go ahead and map all that and figure out where everything is, I think it would be a time diversion rather than finding a spot where we don't have to consider that. The other problem with that site is it's a former landfill, which makes it difficult in terms of when we have to go back, cover our tracks, so to speak, as far as what we can put back in terms of fill dirt and things like that. So there was a couple of complicating factors with that site that just made me recognize, number one, we'll have to spend money that I hadn't really anticipated to get that site in place. And two, it would probably be an additional time delay that we didn't want to suffer.
We have another question. Can we go over the duration of the monitoring and next steps following monitoring at some point during the meeting? Isn't there to be a health assessment?
Yes.
Yes, there is. So the monitoring period will be 18 months from the time of installation for the air monitors. There will also be a health risk assessment done by the Virginia Department of Health based on that data. All of that information is housed on our TAME DEQ website. If you just Google TAME DEQ, all of that information is there. And that includes a presentation in October of 2022 that goes more in depth into a presentation from VDH Dwight Flamia and talks a little bit about the details of that health risk assessment and what that entails.
Yeah, so in just adding on to that, we need to think of this in terms of 3 separate batches, so to speak, of data. We're going to be using PM10 monitors, okay, and PM10 will get us that particular criteria pollutant and information about it. We're either going to take those and do toxic metals analysis on those PM10 filters, all right, because that's consistent with the EPA's NAAQS methodology for getting toxic metals. And those toxic metals information then will be used to develop a health assessment by the Department of Health. All right, and tying all that together, what we were trying to achieve and are still trying to achieve with the purple air sensors is to give people more immediate feedback. Let them go to the purple air map and see where the air quality is on a more near real-time basis, rather than waiting for the results from the analytical work we have to do for PM10, toxic metals, and the health assessment.
We have one more question. When will monitors be installed?
We are working on that. We've got the documents into the city for them to review. They've got to come back to me with information that I'm working with them now to get, and then we've got to put the contract together for the electrical work. Projecting out, hard to do at this point because I do lose control of the process when it becomes a procurement issue. But the answer to that is we are going to get it done as quickly as we can based on whatever time limitations we have. We have, with this project, been running into issues with supply chain problems in our procurement. And that's not something you get away from in any of our programs at air quality monitoring. But the answer is those monitors will go in as soon as we can possibly get them in.
And as soon as we have an updated timeline where we can be more specific about that, we'll let you guys know. But because of all the factors Chuck just described, we're not exactly sure yet, and we don't want to give a date that we don't know yet. So we'll let you guys know as soon as possible a more specific date. But I do want to also mention it's important to remember that the 18-month study period begins once the monitors are installed, and there's no losing of that time frame based on the length that it takes to get them installed. So monitoring starts at the time of installation, and you have a full 18 months after that. So just to clarify. Any other questions? content. Okay. All right. Any other questions in the room? Thoughts, concerns, comments? Okay, one more time as a reminder, this will go out. You'll receive it at 6:31 p.m. tomorrow evening. It'll come through to your email. If anyone wants to watch the recording and didn't register, they can still register and watch it. There's no kind of block if you didn't register ahead of time. And of course, we will put this on YouTube as well as our website. It'll just take a little bit longer for that to get uploaded. You guys have my contact information. Would you go to the next slide, please? This is my future, we could do it real quick. This was my future meeting brainstorm example where I was gonna have you guys hang things around a central point for what do you wanna see, and then use dots to emphasize points that they like from other people. Maybe next time, but that's okay. And next slide, please. So there's my contact information. If you don't already have it, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to give this presentation in any settings. I will mention I'll be here again tomorrow night with the Lamberts Point Civic League. We'll be watching this recording and then answering any questions that they have. And so if you guys are going to be there, I'll look forward to seeing you. And if not, please feel free to follow up with me with any feedback or any requests. I'm happy to hear them.
We have one last question, at least for now. How many purple air sensors might be utilized for this effort?
Sure, great question. So we are looking at installing 8 across both neighborhoods, and we are not anywhere close in either neighborhood. We have 3 live in Lamberts Point right now, and we have actually 1 live in Easton right now. I've got to troubleshoot 2 of them this week, but they're not big deal problems, just easy ones. Just got to reconnect them to the internet. So we have 5 in each community that are currently available. Our frequently asked questions about purple airs. How much do they cost to run? $1 per year in electricity. Takes me about 30 minutes to install them, and I can turn that around in usually about a week. And they are only available currently for Lamberts Point and Southeast Community of Newport News residents. No one else in the study area is available to request them at this time. And I think those are most of the questions we get asked. I'm working with, I'm actually hoping to see him tomorrow, but I'm working with our resident over there on 27th Street to see if we can get that back up and running. And I actually also need to connect with Kim because I saw her, hers went down. It's up, but like it's grayed out. So I need to go troubleshoot hers too.
One more question. Do they suffer the same moisture sensitivity as the big monitors? In other words, can they possibly be placed closer to the water/river?
Oh, totally. They're pretty localized. And so you're going to get, rather than like a representative area, like an air monitor, it's pretty like specific to exactly where it is. So wind and things like that aren't as much of a factor in terms of sighting them. But yeah, they don't have water sensitivity. We had some up here in Lamberts Point through the hurricane season last year. If you guys remember, there's some pretty big storms, and none of them went down. So they're pretty hardy. But if they do go down, you just got to call us, or I'll call you if I notice. All right. Well, in the interest of everybody's time, we're going to go ahead and end it there for this evening. I am going to leave you guys up on the chat for the next 5 minutes, just in case there's any follow-up questions or anything else that you want to ask. I am going to mute us in the room, though, so we don't bombard you with all our chatting as we all stand up. For those in the room, we do have a table over here that Barb will be at if you'd like to chat with her about the EPA initiative. We have project background if you have questions. We have Danielle right here if you'd like to ask her about environmental justice. And then if you would like to use my meeting format wall, that's all set up back there as well. All right. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.